When it comes to assessing defects on a building report, it can actually be quite challenging for a lot of buyers. For example, some pooled water in the subfloor might seem relatively minor versus, say, some live termites, but in reality, the pooled water could be $40,000 or $50,000 worth of drainage work, and a couple of live termites might be easily assessed as only the start of the workings, and there is no damage. So it's very difficult sometimes to figure out which way to go if you're a bit unaccustomed to the process. Essentially, the way to look at it is risk management, which, for anyone who's studied it, and I did at university, there's essentially two parts to it. There's the probability of the event occurring, and there is the consequence of that event. So, for example, if you were to find a cracked roof tile, maybe some damaged flashings on a roof, the probability of a roof leak occurring is probably reasonably high in the medium term, but the consequence of that event is minor. You just fix the roof leak and that's it. However, a termite infestation might be a 1%, 2% chance of happening, but the consequences of that event are catastrophic, at least financially. And so you have to take into account not just the probability of whether the event will occur, but what is the consequence of that event, and relative to your own skill set. Can you fix it? Can you deal with it? Do you have the time and money to do so? So for us, if we find termite workings in timbers in the yard, and definitely old mudding, we effectively insist on a invasive inspection to make sure we are not going to have a client buy that property and find $300,000-$400,000 worth of damage. Simply put, it is not worth the offset. Just an addendum to that previous video, it also matters whether or not the event is insurable. So, for example, in the event of a leak and water damage, you may be able to insure that event. Same with the boundary adjustment, unapproved works. However, in the case of termite workings, for example, it is uninsurable, and therefore the risk is much higher on the consequence scale, because it is effectively unable to be mitigated, which is an important consideration as to whether or not the event is acceptable to you as a purchaser. So please consider that, because it is a very important part of defect assessment. Thanks.